You're listening to Midwest Coven Cast presents Weekend Reads. I'm Marilyn of Midwest Coven Cast, and each week I will be reading to you, dear listeners, occult works that are in the public domain. All of this I do with the goal of helping each of us grow in our knowledge and practices. Here in Season 1, we will be making our way through Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy or magic, published in 1531. I hope you enjoy this week's installment. Chapter 48. Of the virtue of places, and what places are suitable to every star. There be wonderful virtues of places accompanying them, either from things there placed, or by the influences of the stars, or in any other way. For, as Pliny relates of the cuckoo, in what place any one doth first hear him, if his right footprint be marked about, and that place dug up, there will no fleas be bred in that place where it is scattered. So they say that the dust of the track of a snake, being gathered up and scattered amongst bees, makes them return to their hives. So, also, that the dust in which a mule hath rolled himself, being cast upon the body, doth mitigate the heat of passion, and that the dust wherein a hawk hath rolled herself, if it be bound to the body in a bright red cloth, cures the quartan. So doth the stone taken out of the nest of a swallow, as they say, presently relieve those that have the falling sickness, and being bound to the party, continually preserves them, especially if it be rolled in the blood or heart of a swallow. It is reported that if any one shall cut a vein, being fasting, and shall go over a place where any one lately fell with the fit of a falling sickness, that he shall fall into the same disease. And Pliny reports that to fasten an iron nail in that place where he that fell with a fit of the falling sickness first did pitch his head, will free him from his disease. So they say that an herb growing upon the head of any image, being gathered and bound up in some part of one's garment with a red thread, shall presently allay the headache, and that any herb gathered out of the brooks or rivers before sun rising, and no body seeing him that gathers it, shall cure the tertian if it be bound to the left arm, the sick party not knowing what is done. Amongst places that are appropriated to the stars, all stinking places, and dark underground religious and mournful places, as churchyards, tombs, and houses not inhabited by men, and old, tottering, obscure, dreadful houses, and solitary dens, caves, and pits, also fish ponds, standing pools, sewers, and such like, are appropriated to Saturn. Unto Jupiter are ascribed all privileged places, consistories of noblemen, tribunals, chairs, places for exercises, schools, and all beautiful and clean places, and those sprinkled with diverse odors. To Mars, fiery and bloody places, furnaces, bakehouses, shambles, places of execution, and places where there have been great battles fought and slaughters made, and the like. To the sun, light places, the serene air, kings' palaces, and princes' courts, pulpits, theaters, thrones, and all kingly and magnificent places. To Venus, pleasant fountains, green meadows, flourishing gardens, garnished beds, stews, and according to Orpheus, the sea and seashore, baths, dancing places, and all places belonging to women. To Mercury, shops, schools, warehouses, exchanges for merchants, and the like. To the moon, wildernesses, woods, rocks, hills, mountains, forests, fountains, waters, rivers, seas, seashores, ships, highways, groves, granaries for corn, and such like. On this account, they that endeavor to procure love are wont to bury for a certain time the instruments of their art, whether they be rings, images, looking-glasses, or any other, or hide them in a stew-house, so that they will contract some virtue under Venus. The same as those things that stand in stinking places become stinking, and those in an aromatical place become aromatic, and of a sweet savor. The four corners of the earth also pertain to this matter. Hence, they that are to gather a saturnine, martial, or jovial herb must look towards the east or south, partly because they desire to be oriental from the sun, and partly because of their principal houses, viz., Aquarius, Scorpio, and Sagittarius, are southern signs, so also are Capricornus and Pisces. But they that will gather a venereal, mercurial, or lunary herb must look towards the west, because they delight to be western, or else they must look towards the north, because their principal houses, viz., Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Virgo, are northern signs. So in any solary works, we must look not only towards the east and south whilst plucking it, but also towards the solary body and light. Chapter 49. Of light colors, candles, and lamps, and to what stars, houses, and elements several colors are ascribed. Light also is a quality that partakes much of form, and is a simple act, and also a representation of the understanding. It is first diffused from the mind of God into all things, but in God the Father of light, it is the first true light, then in the Son a beautiful, overflowing brightness, and in the Holy Ghost a burning brightness, exceeding all intelligences. Yea, as Dionysius saith of seraphims, in angels it is a shining intelligence diffused, an abundant joy beyond all bounds of reason, yet received in diverse degrees according to the nature of the intelligence that receives it. Then it descends into the celestial bodies, where it becomes a store of life and an effectual propagation, even of visible splendor. In the fire it is a certain natural liveliness infused into it by the heavens. And lastly, in men, it is a clear course of reason, an innate knowledge of divine things, and the whole rational faculty. But this is manifold, either by reason of the disposition of the body, or by reason of him who bestows it, who gives it to every one as he pleaseth. From thence it passeth to the fancy, yet above the senses, but only imaginable, and thence to the senses, especially to the sense of the eyes. In them light is a visible clearness, and is extended to other perspicuous bodies, in which it becomes a color and a shining beauty. But in dark bodies it is a certain beneficial and generative virtue, and penetrates to the very center where it beams, being collected into a small place, become a dark heat, tormenting and scorched, so that all things perceive the vigor of the light according to their capacity, and all light joining to itself an enlivening heat, and passing through all things doth convey its qualities and virtues to all things. Great is the power of light to mar or make enchantments. So a sick man, uncovered against the sun or the moon, their rays become charged with the noxious qualities of the sickness, and penetrating convey them into the body of another, and effect that with a quality of the same kind. So that from the sick should be covered deep from the light, lest its occult quality doth infect the well. This is the reason why enchanters have a care to cover their enchantments with their shadow. So the civet cat makes all dogs dumb with the very touch of her shadow. Also, there are made artificially some lights by lamps, torches, candles, and such like, of some certain things and fluids opportunely chosen according to the rule of the stars, and composed amongst themselves according to their congruity, which when they be lighted, and shine alone, are wont to produce some wonderful and celestial effects, which men many times wonder at. So Pliny reports, out of Anaxagoras, of a poison of mares, which, being lighted in torches, doth monstrously represent a sight of horses' heads. The like may be done with flies, which being duly tempered with wax, and lighted, make strange sight of flies, and the skin of a serpent, lighted in a proper lamp, maketh serpents appear. They say that, when grapes are in their flower, if one shall bind a vial full of oil to them, and shall let it alone until they be ripe, and then the oil be put in a lamp and lighted, it makes grapes to be seen, and so with other fruits. If centauri be mixed with honey, and the blood of a lapwing, and be put in a lamp, they that stand about will look much larger than they are wont, and if it be lit in a clear night, the stars will seem to scatter one from another. Such force also is in the ink of the cuttlefish, that it being put into a lamp makes blackamoors appear. It is also reported that a candle made of some saturnine things being lighted, if it be extinguished in the mouth of a man newly dead, will afterwards, as oft as it shines alone, bring a feeling of sadness and great fear upon them that stand about it. Of such, like torches and lamps, doth Hermes speak more of, also Plato and Chirinides, and of the latter writers Albertus, in a certain treatise of this particular thing. Colors, also, are a class of lights, which being duly mixed with things, are wont to expose such things to the influence of those stars to which the colors are agreeable. And we shall afterwards speak of some colors which are the lights of the planets, by which even the natures of fixed stars themselves are understood, which also may be applied to the flames of lamps and candles. But in this place we shall relate how the colors of inferior mixed things are distributed to diverse planets. All colors as black, lucid, earthy, leaden, or brown have relation to Saturn. Sapphire and airy colors, and those which are always green, clear, purple, darkish, golden, or mixed with silver, belong to Jupiter. Red colors and burning, fiery, flaming, violet, purple, bloody, and iron colors resemble Mars. Golden, saffron, purple, and bright colors resemble the sun. But all white, fair, curious, green, ruddy, betwixt saffron and purple, resemble Venus, Mercury, and the moon. Moreover, amongst the signs of the zodiac, known as the houses of the heaven, the 1st and 7th hath the color white, the 2nd and 12th green, and 3rd and 11th saffron, the 4th and the 10th red, the 5th and the 9th a honey color, and the 6th and 8th black. The elements also have their colors, by which natural philosophers judge of the complexion and property of their nature. For an earthy color caused of coldness and dryness is brown and black, and manifests black color and a saturnine nature. Blue, tending towards whiteness, doth denote phlegm, for cold makes white, moisture and dryness makes black. Reddish color shews blood, but fiery, flaming, burning hot shows choler, which by reason of its subtlety and aptness to mix with others doth cause diverse colors more. For if it be mixed with blood, and blood be most predominant, it makes a florid red. If choler predominate, it makes a reddish color. If there be an equal mixtion, it makes a sad red. But if a dust choler be mixed with blood, it makes a hempen color, and red if blood predominate, and somewhat red if choler prevail. But if it be mixed with a melancholy humor, it makes a black color. But with melancholy and phlegm together, in equal proportion, it makes a hempen color. If phlegm abound, a mud color, if melancholy, a bluish. But if it be mixed with phlegm alone, in an equal proportion, it makes a citron color, if unequally, a pale or palish. Now, all colors are more prevalent when they be in silk, or in metals, or in perspicuous substances, or in precious stones, and in those things which resemble celestial bodies in color, especially in living things. Chapter 50. Of Fascination and the Art thereof. Fascination is a binding, which comes from the spirit of the witch, through the eyes of him that is so bewitched, and entering to his heart. Now the instrument of fascination is the spirit, viz., a certain pure, lucid, subtle vapor, generated of the purer blood by the heat of the heart. This doth always send forth through the eyes rays like to itself. Those rays, being sent forth, do carry with them a spiritual vapor, and that vapor a blood, as it appears in swollen and red eyes. Those rays, being sent forth to the eyes of him that looks upon them, carry the vapor of the corrupt blood together with itself, by the contagion of which it doth infect the eyes of the beholder with the like disease. So the eye, being opened and intent upon any one with a strong imagination, doth dart its beams, which are the vehiculum of the spirit, into the eyes of him that is opposite to him, which tender spirit strikes the eye of him that is bewitched, being stirred up from the heart of him that strikes, and possesseth the breast of him that is stricken, wounds his heart, and infects his spirit. Whence Apuleius saith, Thy eyes, sliding down through my eyes into mine inward breast, stir up a most vehement burning in my marrow. Know, then, that men are most bewitched when, with often beholding, they direct the edge of their sight to the edge of the sight of those that bewitch them, and when their eyes are reciprocally intent one upon the other, and when rays are joined to rays, and lights to lights, the spirit of the one is joined to the spirit of the other, and fixeth its sparks. So are strong ligations made, and so most vehement lovers are inflamed with only the rays of the eyes, even with a certain sudden looking on, as if it were with a dart or stroke, penetrating the whole body, whence then the spirit and amorous blood being thus wounded are carried forth upon the lover and enchanter. No otherwise than the spirit and spirit of the vengeance of him that is slain are upon him that slays him. Whence Lucerdius sang concerning those amorous bewitchings, the body smitten is, but yet the mind is wounded with the darts of Cupid blind. All parts of sympathies eye the wound, but no, the blood appears in that which had the blow. Note. Again, in speaking of the power of Venus, the goddess of peace, over Mars, the god of war, he says, On thy soft bosom, he, the warlike field who sways, almighty Mars, struck by triumphant love's eternal wound, reclines full frequent with uplifted gaze. On thee he feeds his longing, lingering eyes, and all his soul hangs quivering from thy lips. So great is the power of fascination, especially when the vapors of the eyes are subservient to the affection. Therefore witches use cauteries, ointments, allegations, and such like to affect and corroborate the spirit in this or that manner. To procure love, they use venereal cauteries, as hippomanes, the blood of doves or sparrows, and such like. To induce fear, they use martial cauteries, as the eyes of wolves, the civet cat, and the like. To procure misery or sickness, they use saturnine things, and so of the rest. Chapter 51. Of certain observations producing wonderful virtues. They say that certain acts and observations have a certain power of natural things, that they believe diseases may be expelled or brought thus and thus. So they say that quartains may be driven away if the parings of the nails of the sick be bound to the neck of a live eel in a linen cloth, and she be let go unto the water. And Pliny saith that the parings of a sick man's nails of his feet and hands, being mixed with wax, cure the quartan, tertian, and quotidian ague, and if they be before sunrising fastened to another man's gate, will cure such like diseases. In like manner, let all the parings of the nails be put into the caves of ants, and the first ant that begins to draw at the parings must be taken and bound to the neck of the sick, and by this means will the disease be cured. They say that by wood, stricken with lightning, and cast behind the back with one's hands, any disease may be removed, and in quartains, a piece of nail from a gibbet wrapped up in wool and hung about the neck cures them. Also a rope doth the like that is taken from a gallows, and hid underground, so that the sun cannot reach it. The throat of him that hath a hard swelling, or imposthume, being touched with the hand of him that died by an immature death, will be cured thereby. They say also that a woman is presently eased of her hard labor, if any one shall put into her bed a stone or dart, with which a boar or a bear or man hath been killed with one blow. The same doth a spear that is pulled out of the body of a man, if it shall not first touch the ground. Also, they say that arrows, pulled out of the body of a man, if they have not touched the earth, taken and stealthily placed under any one lying down, will procure love. The falling sickness is cured by meat made of the flesh of a wild beast, slain in the same manner as a man is slain. A man's eyes that are washed 3 times with the water wherein he hath washed his feet shall never be sore or blear. It is said that some do cure diseases of the groin with thread taken out of a weaver's loom and tying into it 7 or 9 knots, the name of some widow being named at every knot. The spleen of cattle extended upon painful spleens cures them, if he that applies it saith that he is applying a medicine to the spleen to cure and ease it. After this, they say, the patient must be shut into a sleeping room, the door being sealed up with a ring, and some verse be repeated over 19 times. The water of a green lizard cures the same disease if it be hanged up in a vessel before the patient's bedchamber, so that he may, as he passes in and out, touch it with his hand. And a little frog climbing up a tree, if anyone shall spit in his mouth, and then let him escape, is said to cure the cough. It is a wonderful thing, but easy to experience, that Pliny speaks of, that if any one shall be sorry for any blow that he hath given another, afar off or nigh at hand, if he shall presently spit into the middle of that hand with which he gave the blow, the party that was smitten shall presently be freed from pain. This hath been approved of in a 4-footed beast that hath been sorely hurt. Some there are that aggravate the blow before they give it. In like manner, spittle carried in the hand, or to spit in the shoe of the right foot before it be put on, is good when anyone passeth through a dangerous place. They say that wolves will not come to a field, if one of them be taken, and his blood let by little and little out of his legs, being unbroken with a knife, and sprinkled about the outside of the field, and he himself be buried in that place from whence he was first drawn. The Methanenses, citizens of Trezenium, accounted it as a present remedy for preserving of vines from the wrong of the southern wind, having always found it by most certain experience, if, whilst the wind blows, a white cock should be pulled to pieces in the middle by 2 men, both of whom, each keeping his part, must walk each way around the vineyard, until both meet in the place from whence they began their circuit, and must in that place bury the pieces of the cock. Also, if any one shall hold a viper over a vapor with a staff, he shall prophesy, and that the staff wherewith a snake was beaten is good against female diseases. These things Pliny recites. It is said that in gathering roots and herbs, we must draw 3 circles round about them first with a sword, and then dig them up, meanwhile taking heed of any contrary wind. Also they say that if any one shall measure a dead man with a rope, first from the elbow to the biggest finger, then from the shoulder to the same finger, and afterwards from the head to the feet, making thrice those mensurations, if any one afterwards shall be measured with the same rope in the same manner, he shall not prosper, but be unfortunate, and fall into misery and sadness. Albertus of Tyrannus saith, that if any woman hath enchanted thee to love her, take the gown she sleepeth in out of doors, and spit through the right sleeve thereof, when the enchantment will be quitted. And Pliny saith, that to sit by women far with child, or when a medicine is given to any one of them, the fingers being joined together like the teeth of a comb, is a charm, so much the more if the hands be joined about one or both knees. Also, to sit cross-legged is sorcery. Therefore, it was forbidden to be done in the councils of princes and rules, as a thing which hindered all acts. And it is said, if any one shall stand before a man's chamber door, and call to him by name, and the man answer, if then he fasten a knife or needle on the door, the edge or point being downward, and break it, he that be in the room shall be unable of his intention, so long as those things shall be there. Chapter 52. Of the countenance and gesture, the habit and the figure of the body, and to what stars any of these do answer, whence physiognomy and metapiscopony and chiromancy, arts of divination, have their grounds. The countenance, gesture, motion, setting, and figure of the body, being accidental to us, conduce to the receiving of celestial gifts, and expose us to the superior bodies, which produce certain effects in us, like unto the effects following the methods of gathering hellebore, which if thou pullest the leaf upward, when gathering it, draws the humours upwards, and causeth vomiting. If downward, it causeth purging, drawing the humour downward. How much also the countenance and gesture of one person doth affect the sight, imagination, and spirit of another, no man is ignorant. So they that are parents discover those impressions in their children of their previous conditions, and that which they did then do, form and imagine. So a mild and cheerful countenance of a prince in the city makes the people joyful, but if it be fierce or sad, doth terrify them. So the gesture and countenance of any one lamenting doth easily move to pity. So the shape of an amiable person doth easily excite to friendship. Thou must know that such like gestures and figures as harmonies of the body do expose it no otherwise to the celestials than odors and the spirit of medicine, and internal passions also do the soul. For as medicines and passions of the mind are by certain dispositions of the heaven increased, so also the gesture and motion of the body do get an efficacy by certain influences of the heavens. For there are gestures resembling Saturn, which are melancholy and sad, as are beating of the breast or striking of the head, also such as are religious, as the bowing of the knee, and a fixed look downwards, as of one praying, also weeping, and such like, as are used by the austere and saturnine man, such as one as the satirist describes. With hanged down head, with eyes fixed to the ground, his raging words bites in, and muttering sound, he doth express with pouting lips. A cheerful and honest countenance, a worshipful or noble gesture or bearing, clapping of the hands as one rejoicing and praising, and the bending of the knee, with the head lifted up, as of one that is worshipping, are ascribed to Jupiter. A sour, fierce, cruel, angry, rough countenance and gesture are ascribed to Mars. Solary are honorable and courageous gestures and countenances. Also, walking abroad, a bending of the knee, as of one honoring a king with one knee bent. Those under Venus are dances, embraces, laughters, and those of an amiable and cheerful countenance. Those mercurial are inconstant, quick, variable, and such like gestures and countenances. Those lunary, or under the moon, are such as are movable, poisonous, and childish, and the like. As we have spoken above of gestures, so also are the shapes of men distinct, as follows. Saturn bespeaks a man to be of a black and yellowish color, lean, crooked, of a rough skin, great veins, and body covered with hair, little eyes, of a frowning forehead, a thin beard, great lips, eyes intent upon the ground, of a heavy gait, striking his feet together as he walks, crafty, witty, a seducer, and murderous. Jupiter signifies a man to be of a pale color, darkish red, a handsome body, good stature, bold, of great eyes, not black altogether, with large pupils, short nostrils not equal, great teeth before, curled hair of good disposition and manners. Mars makes a man red, with red hair, a round face, yellowish eyes of a terrible and sharp look, jocund, bold, proud, and crafty. The sun makes a man of a tawny color, betwixt yellow and black, dashed with red, of a short stature, yet of handsome body, without much hair and curly, of yellow eyes, wise, faithful, and desirous of praise. Venus signifies a man to be tending towards blackness, but more white, with a mixture of red, a handsome body, a fair and round face, fair hair, fair eyes, the blackness whereof is more intense, of good manners, and honest love, also kind, patient, and jocund. Mercury signifies a man not much white or black, of a long face, high forehead, fair eyes, not black, to have a straight and long nose, thin beard, long fingers to be ingenuous, a subtle inquisitor, a turncoat, and subject to many fortunes. The moon signifies a man to be in color white, mixed with a little red, or a fair stature, a round face with some marks in it, eyes not fully black, frowning forehead, and kind, gentle, and sociable. The signs also and the faces of signs have their figures and shapes, which he that would know must seek them out in books of astrology. Lastly, upon these figures and gestures, both physiognomy and metaposcopy, arts of divination, do depend. Also, chiromancy, foretelling future events, not as causes, but as signs, through like effects, caused by the same cause. And although these diverse kinds of divinations may seem to be done by inferior and weak signs, yet the judgments of them are not to be slighted or condemned when prognostication is made by them, not out of superstition, but by reason of the harmonical correspondency of all the parts of the body. Whosoever, therefore, doth the more exactly imitate the celestial bodies, either in nature, study, action, motion, gesture, countenance, passions of the mind, and opportunity of the season, is so much the more like to the heavenly bodies, and can receive larger gifts from them. Chapter 53. Of Divination and the Kinds thereof. There are some other kinds of divinations, depending upon natural causes, which are known to every one in his art and experience to be in diverse things, by which physicians, husbandmen, shepherds, mariners, and others do prognosticate out of the probable signs of every kind of divination. Many of these kinds of divination Aristotle made mention of in his book of Times, amongst which auguria and auspicia are the chiefest, which were in the former time in such esteem amongst the Romans that they would do nothing that did belong to private or public business without the counsel of the augurs. Cicero, in his book of divinations, largely declares that the people of Tucia would do nothing without his art. Now there are diverse kinds of auspicias, for some are called pedestria, i.e., which are taken from four-footed beasts, some are called auguria, which are taken from birds. Some are celestial, which are taken from thunderings and lightnings. Some are called caduca, i.e., when any fell in the temple or elsewhere. Some were sacred, which were taken from sacrifices. Some of these were called piacula and sad auspicia, as when a sacrifice escaped from the altar, or being smitten, made a bellowing, or fell upon another part of his body than he should. To these is added exauguration, viz., when the rod fell out of the hand of the augur, with which it was the custom to view and take notice of the auspicium. Michael Scotus makes mention of 12 kinds of auguries, viz., 6 on the right hand, the names of which he saith are Fernova, Fervitus, Confert, Emponenthum, Sonasarnova, and Sonasarvitus, and 6 on the left hand, the names of which are Confernova, Confervitus, Virum, Heronum, Scasarnova, and Scasarvitus. Expounding their names, he saith, Fernova is an augury when thou goest out of thy house to do thy business, and in going thou see a man or a bird going or flying, so that either of them set himself before thee upon thy left hand, that is a good signification in reference to thy business. Fervitus is an augury when thou shalt go out of thy house to do any business, and in going thou find or see a bird or man resting himself before thee on the left side of thee. That is an ill sign concerning thy business. Virum is an augury when a man or a bird in his journey or flying pass before thee, coming from the right side of thee, and bending toward thy left, go out of thy sight. That is a good sign concerning thy business. Confernova is an augury when thou dost first find a man or bird going or flying, and then rest himself before thee on thy right side. Thou seeing of it, that is a good sign concerning thy business. Confervitus is an augury when first thou find or see a man or bird bending from thy right side. It is an ill sign concerning thy business. Scamasarnova, or Sanasarnova, is when a man or a bird comes behind thee and outgoeth thee, but before he comes at thee he rests. Thou seeing of him on thy right side, it is to thee a good sign. Scamastervitus, or Sonacervitus, is when thou see a man or bird behind thee. But before he comes to thee, he rests in that place. Thou seeing of it is a good sign. Comfort is an augury when a man or bird in journeying or flying shall pass behind thee, coming from the left side of thee, and bending toward thy right, pass out of thy sight, and is an evil sign concerning thy business. Scacervitus is when thou see a man or bird pass by thee, and resting in a place on thy left side, is an evil sign to thee. Scacernova is when thou see a man or bird pass by thee, and resting in a place on thy right side, is an augury of good to thee. Eponethum is when a man or bird, coming from thy left side, and passing to thy right, goeth out of thy sight without resting, and is a good sign. Hartana or Heranem is an augury that, if a man or a bird coming from thy right hand shall pass behind thy back to thy left, and thou shalt see him resting anywhere, this is an evil sign. The ancients did also prognosticate from sneezings, of which Homer, in the 7th book of his poem of the Odyssey, makes mention, because they thought that they proceeded from a sacred place, viz., the head, in which the intellect is vigorous and operative. Whence also whatsoever speech came into the breast or mind of a man, rising in the morning unawares, is said to be some presage and an augury. Chapter 54. Of diverse certain animals and other things which have a signification in auguries. All the auspicia or auspices which first happen in the beginning of any enterprise are to be taken notice of. As, if in the beginning of thy work thou shalt perceive that rats have gnawn thy garments, desist from thy undertakings. If going forth thou shalt stumble at the threshold, or if in the way thou shalt dash thy foot against any thing, forbear thy journey. If any ill omen happen in the beginning of thy business, put off thy undertakings, lest thy intentions be wholly frustrated, or accomplished to no purpose. But expect and wait for a fortunate hour, for the dispatching of thy affairs with a better omen. We see that many animals are, by a natural power inbred in them, prophetical. Doth not the cock by his crowing diligently tell you the hours of the night and morning, and with his wings spread forth chase away the lion? Many birds with their singing and chattering, and flies by their sharp pricking, foretell rain, and dolphins by their often leaping above the water warn of tempests. It would be too long to relate all the passages which the Therians, Cilicians, Arabians, Umbrians, Tucians, and other peoples which follow the auguries have learned by birds. These they have proved by many experiments and examples, for in all things the oracles of things to come are hid, but those are the chiefest which omenal birds shall foretell. These are those which the poets relate were turned from men into birds. Therefore, when the daw declares, hearken unto the mark, observing her setting as she sits, and her manner of flying, whether on the right hand or left, whether clamorous or silent, whether she goes before or follows after, whether she waits for the approach of him that passeth by, or flies from him, and which way she goes. All these things must be diligently observed. Orus Apollo saith in his hieroglyphics that daws that are twins signify marriage, because this bird brings forth 2 eggs, out of which male and female must be brought forth. But if, which seldom happens, 2 males be generated, or 2 females, the males will not go with any other females, nor females with any other males, but will always live without a mate, and solitary. Therefore, they that meet a single daw divine therefore that they shall live a single life. The same also doth a black hen pigeon betoken, for after the death of her mate she always lives single. Thou shalt also as carefully observe crows, which are as significant as daws, yea, and in greater matters. It was Epictetus, the Stoics' philosopher's judgment, who was a sage author, that if a crow did croak over against any one, it did betoken some evil, either to his body, fortune, honor, wife, or children. Then thou shalt take heed to swans, who foreknow the secrets of the waters, for their cheerfulness doth presage happy events, not only to mariners, but all other travellers, unless they be overcome by the coming over of a stronger bird, as of an eagle, who, by the most potent majesty of her sovereignty, makes null the predications of all other birds, if she speaks to the contrary. For she flies higher than all other birds, and is of more acute sight, and is never excluded from the secrets of Jupiter. She portends advancement and victory, but by blood, because she drinks no water but blood. An eagle flying over the Locrisians, fighting against the Crodoniensians, gave them victory. An eagle setting herself unawares upon the target of Hero, going forth to the first war, betokened that he should be king. 2 eagles sitting all day upon the house at the birth of Alexander of Macedonia did portend him an omen of 2 kingdoms, viz., Asia and Europe. An eagle also taking off the hat of Lucius Tarquinius Priscus, son of Demarathus the Corinthian, and by some reason of some discord, being come into Hertraria and going to Rome, and then flying high with it, and afterwards putting it upon his head again, did portend to him the kingdom of the Romans. Vultures signify difficulty, hardness, and ravenousness, which was verified in the beginning of the building of cities. Also they foretell the places of slaughter, coming 7 days beforehand, and because they have most respect to that place, where the greatest slaughter shall be, as if they gaped after the greatest number of the slain, therefore the ancient kings were wont to send out spies to take notice what place the vultures had most respect to. The phoenix promiseth singular good success, which being seen anew, Rome was built very auspiciously. The pelican, because she hazards herself for her young, signifies that a man should, out of the zeal of his love, undergo much hardship. The painted bird give the name to the city of Pictavia, and foreshadowed the lenity of that people by its color and voice. The heron is an augury of hard things. The stork also is a bird of concord, and makes concord. Cranes gives us notice of the treachery of enemies. The bird Cacufa betokens gratitude, for she alone doth express love to her dam, being spent with old age. On the contrary, the hippopotamus that kills his dam doth betoken ingratitude for good turns, also injustice. The bird Origus is most envious, and betokens envy. Amongst the smaller birds, the pie is talkative and foretells guests. The bird Albanellus flying by anyone, if from the left to the right, betokens cheerfulness of entertainment. If contrariwise, betokens the contrary. The screech owl is always unlucky, so also is the horn owl, who because she goes to her young by night, unawares, as death comes unawares, is therefore said to foretell death. Yet sometimes, because she is not blind in the dark of the night, doth betoken diligence and watchfulness, which she made good when she sat upon the spear of Hero. And Dido, when she saw the unlucky owl, pitied Aeneas, whence the poet sang, "The owl, sitting on top of the house alone, sends forth her sad complaints with mournful tone." And in another place, "The slothful owl by mortals is esteemed, a fateful omen." The same bird sang in the Capitol when the Roman affairs were low at Numantia, and when Fregelia was pulled down for a conspiracy made against the Romans. Almadel says that owls and night ravens, when they turn aside to strange countries or houses, betoken the death of the men of that country and those houses, for those birds are delighted with dead carcasses and perceive them beforehand. For men that are dying have a near affinity with dead carcasses. The hawk is also a foreteller of contention, as Naso sings, "We hate the hawk, because that arms amongst she always lives." Lellius, the ambassador of Pompey, was slain in Spain amongst the purveyors, which misfortune a hawk flying over the head is said to foretell. And Almadel saith that these kinds of birds, fighting amongst themselves, signify the change of a kingdom. But if birds of another kind shall fight with them, and are never seen to come together again, it portends a new condition and state of that country. Also, little birds by their coming to or departing from foreshew that a family shall be increased or lessened, and their flight, by how much the more serene it is, by so much the more laudable shall the change be. Whence did Melampus, the ogre, conjecture at the slaughter of the Greeks by the flight of little birds, when he saith, Thou see now that no bird takes his flight in fair weather. Swallows, because when they are dying they provide a place of safety for their young, do portend a great patrimony or legacy after the death of friends. A bat, meeting anyone running away, signifies an evasion, for although she have no wings yet, she flies. A sparrow is a bad omen to one that runs away, for she flies from the hawk and makes haste to the owl, where she is in as great danger. Yet in love she is fortunate, for being stripped up with affection, she seeks her consort hourly. Bees are a good omen to kings, for they signify an obsequious people. Flies signify importunity and impudence, because being oftentimes driven away, they do continually return. Also, domestic birds are not without some auguries, for cocks, by their crowing, promote hope, and the journey of him that is undertaking it. Moreover, Livia, the mother of Tiberius, when she was great with him, took a hen's egg and hatched it in her bosom, and at length came forth a cock-chick with a great comb, which the auguries interpreted that the child that should be born of her should be a king. And Cicero writes that at Thebes, cocks, by their crowing all night, did presage that the Baeotians would obtain victory against the Lacedaemonians, and the reason is according to the auguries' interpretations, because that bird, when he is beaten, is silent, but when he himself hath overcome, crows. In like manner, also, omens of events are taken from beasts, for the meaning of a weasel is ominous. Also, the meaning of a hare is an ill omen to a traveler, unless she be taken. A mule also is bad because barren. A hog is pernicious, for such is his nature, and therefore signifies pernicious men. A horse betokens quarrelings and fightings, whence Anchises, seeing of white horses, cries out in Virgil, With war are horses armed, yea, threaten war. But when they are joined together in a chariot, because they draw with an equal yoke, they signify that peace is to be hoped for. An ass is an unprofitable creature, yet did Marius good, who, when he was pronounced an enemy to his country, saw an ass disdaining provender that was offered to him, and running to the water, by which augury he, supposing he saw a way of safety showed to him, entreated the aid of his friends, that they would convey him to the sea, which being granted, he was set into a little ship, and so escaped the threats of Sylla the conqueror. If the foal of an ass meet any one going to an augury, he signifies labor, patience, and hindrances. A wolf meeting any one is a good sign, the effect whereof was seen in Hero of Sicilia, from whom a wolf, snatching away a book whilst he was at school, confirmed to him the success of the kingdom, but yet the wolf makes him speechless whom he sees first. A wolf rent in pieces a watchman of P. Africanus and C. Fulvius at Minturn, when the Roman army was overcome by the fugitives of Sicilia. He signifies perfidious men, such as you can give no credit to, which was known in the progeny of Romans. For the faith which they long since sucked from their mother the wolf, and kept to themselves from the beginning, as by a certain law of nature, passed over their posterity. To meet a lion, seeing she is amongst animals the strongest and striking terror into all the rest, is good. But for a woman to meet a lioness is bad, because she hinders conception, for a lioness brings forth but once. To meet sheep and goats is good. It is read to the Ostentarian of the Teutians, If this animal shall wear any unusual color, it portends to the emperor plenty of all things together with much happiness. Whence Virgil sings to Pollio, sings thus, But in the meadows rams shall scarlet bear, and changing sometimes golden fleeces wear. It is good also to meet oxen treading out corn, but better to meet them plowing, which although breaking the way, hinder thy journey, yet by the favor of their auspicium will recompense thee again. A dog in a journey is fortunate, because Cyrus, being cast into the woods, was nourished by a dog until he came to the kingdom, which also the angel companion of Tobit did not scorn as a companion. The caster, because he biteth himself sorely, so as to be seen by hunters, is an ill omen, and portends that a man will injure himself. Also, amongst small animals, mice signify danger, for the same day that they did gnaw gold in the Capitol, both the consuls were intercepted by Hannibal by way of ambush near Tarentum. The locust, making a stand in any place, or burning the place, hinders one from their wishes, and is an ill omen. And on the contrary, the grasshopper promotes a journey, and foretells a good event of things. The spider, weaving a line downward, is said to signify hope of money to come. Also the ants, because they know how to provide for themselves, and to prepare safe nests for themselves, portend security and riches, and a great army. Hence, when the ants had devoured a tame dragon of Tiberius Caesar, it was advised that he should take heed of the tumult of a multitude. If a snake meet thee, take heed of an ill-tongued enemy, for this creature hath no power but in his mouth. A snake creeping into the palace of Tiberius portended his fall. 2 snakes were found in the bed of Sempronius Gracchus, wherefore a soothsayer told him, if he would let the male or the female escape, either he or his wife would shortly die, and he, preferring the life of his wife, killed the male and let the female go, and within a few days he died. So a viper signifies lewd women and wicked children, and an eel signifies a male displeased with everybody, for she lives apart from all other fishes, nor is ever found in the company of any. But amongst all auguries and omens, there is none more effectual and potent than man himself, and none that doth signify the truth more clearly. Thou shalt, therefore, diligently note and observe the condition of the man that meeteth thee, his age, profession, station, stature, gesture, motion, exercise, complexion, habit, name, words, speech, and all such like things. Seeing there are in all other animals so many discoveries of presages, without all question these are more efficacious and clear which are infused into man's soul, which Tully himself testifies, saying that there is a certain auspicium naturally in men's souls of their eternity, for the knowing of the courses and causes of things. In the foundation of the city of Rome, the head of a man was found with his whole face, and which did presage the greatness of the empire, and gave the name of the mountain of the capital. The Brudian soldiers fighting against Octavius and Antonius found an Ethiopian in the gate of their castle, and though they slew him as a presage of all success, yet they were unfortunate in battle, and both their generals, Brutus and Cassius, were slain. The meeting of monks is commonly accounted an ill omen, and so much the rather, if it be early in the morning, because these kind of men live for the most by the sudden death of men, as vultures do by slaughters. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Midwest Coven Cast Presents Weekend Reads. Join me next week for the next installment as we continue through Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy or magic. For more information about Midwest Coven Cast, you can visit our website at midwestcovencast.com. You can also follow us on social media at Midwest Coven Cast on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, or at Midwest Coven on Twitter. We hope to see you there. Until next time, Coven, blessed be.